Hi, everybody. Testing this mic. Is it on? Okay. Not so much.
It's on. It's just quiet.
Too tall. Say that again.
While she fiddles with the mic, if we have any judges that are here that are not checked in with Emily, please check in with Emily over here in the black blazer. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope that everyone can hear me all right with this mic. It seems a little bit subdued, but welcome everyone. We're very excited to kick off 3-minute thesis final rounds. And you know, we're really glad to be doing this. Our office has done this. This will be the third time that OGPA has taken over 3MT, and it really only just gets better. And it's really exciting to see people gather in support and celebration of doctoral research. So if I can introduce myself briefly, my name is Autumn Anthony. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Affairs. This is my third time hosting together with Hillary Hughes. Hillary, where'd you go? She disappeared. She's coming right back. For those of you who may be new to 3MT, this competition challenges doctoral students to explain their complex dissertation research in just 3 minutes using one static slide, and most importantly, using language that the layperson can understand. It's fast-paced, it's challenging, and it's really fun to watch. So today's competitors represent the highest scoring presenters from our preliminary rounds that took place last week. We started with 60 graduate students, but our presenters today ultimately out-competed other participants to earn a spot in this final round and the opportunity to compete for cash prizes. So our first place winner today will take home $1,000. Second place, $750. Third place is $500, and the People's Choice Award, which, as you can guess by the name, is determined by you all, also takes home $500. So before we dive in, I'm going to review the competition rules. These are very important for our presenters to keep in mind, also our judges, and it's fun to be aware as the audience to all of these fun little rules that we have for this competition. So the buzzer will sound when the time is up, just so everyone knows. A single static PowerPoint slide is permitted. No slide transitions, animations, or movement of any description are allowed. The slide is to be presented from the beginning of oration. So when you step up and the first word of presentation leaves your mouth, then we kind of start the clock and your slide will be up on the screen. No additional electronic media, such as sound or video files, are permitted. No additional props, costumes, musical instruments, laboratory equipment are permitted. And then the presentations are to be limited to 3 minutes exactly. So any spoken words after that 3-minute mark will count against you. Unfortunately, that's a disqualifier. However, we're aware of the habit, the very polite habit we have when we conclude our presentations of saying thank you. Those words will not disqualify you if you say them after the 3-minute mark. Let's see. Presentations are to be spoken word. So sorry, no poems, no songs, no raps. Presentations are to commence from the stage, and be mindful, if you're standing directly in front of the projector, you may be covering your content. So try to kind of be maybe on the side of the slide. Presentations are considered to have commenced, again, when you say that first word. And you may also kind of gesture to us with a movement that you're starting. So our judges will be scoring competitors across 2 main areas. They'll balance both the substance of the research and how effectively it's communicated. They are specifically scoring comprehension and content, or what you are saying, as well as engagement and communication, or how you are saying it. Now, to meet the people responsible for judging, we've got, how many judges do we have? 7 today. So I'm going to name them in no particular order. Dr. Shikha Kandanara is a professorial lecturer, in exercise science and nutrition at GWSPH. We also have Dr. Dongjun Chen, a clinical associate professor of radiology in SMHS. We have Amanda Compton, who's the director in the Bar Success Office of GW Law. Dr. Laura Giltrust, a professorial lecturer, in international affairs at the Elliott School. Dr. Behzad Salimi, professorial lecturer in computer sciences at SEAS, as well as in math at CCAS. We have Dr. Daniel Schwartz, a professor of history in CCAS. And lastly, we have Kyle Crandall, a professorial lecturer of mechanical engineering in SEAS. Thank you to our judges for being here and taking on the tough task of judging these highly competitive presentations. So before we bring our competitors to the stage, I just have a few more housekeeping notes to help everything run smoothly. Please make sure that your cell phones are turned completely off. Sometimes we don't really know what our settings are. So if you have anything on volume that could be really disruptive to our presenters, please turn those off. We will not have an intermission today, so please feel free to step out as needed, but only during the kind of in-between time between presentations. So as soon as you hear applause, once folks have stopped presenting, then you're free to kind of step up and leave the room if you need to. Please also know that this event is being live streamed and photographed. If you have privacy concerns around that, please speak to us after the competition. And lastly, be sure to mentally note, these are for folks in the audience, please be sure to mentally note your favorite presenters so that you can be ready to vote for the People's Choice Award at the end of the event. And now with all of that behind us, it's time for what we're really here for, our competitors. And if I could get a thumbs up from my, my judges that we're ready to okay, thank you. We will leave 2 minutes after every presentation for scoring. I will start my timer and kind of get a thumbs up from you guys once you're finished scoring. Make sure to keep that fairly brief. And I think that is it for rules and housekeeping items. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to call people up to the stage. If you could walk up when you hear your name and wait for your cue and start presenting. Please help me by welcoming Sydney Woods.
Stress is normal. It can be healthy sometimes, but what happens when we're exposed to too much stress at an early life? Environmental stressors such as neglect or poverty can be really detrimental to our developing brains. And up to 60% of adults experience at least one adverse childhood experience, if not more. So this is an incredibly important issue to address. We can study early life stress in the lab using a rodent model where we take Dams and her newborn pups and expose them to a limited resource environment for 1 week before returning them to normal conditions. And in just that brief period of stress, we see a significant impact on a compound in our brain known as serotonin. Now, you might be familiar with serotonin from antidepressants or mood and emotions, but serotonin is also incredibly important for social behaviors. And so for my project, I'm interested in looking at the complex relationship between early life stress, serotonergic activity, and one specific behavior, social competition. Now, social competition is an innate behavior. Animals do it, people do it. And how we test it in the lab is through using what's called the tube test, where we train animals to walk through a tube before putting an opponent on the other end. The two animals meet in the middle, and the winner pushes the loser out. And while it's fascinating to watch, what I have found is that when you expose animals to early life stress and have them compete, they win significantly less than their control counterparts. And in parallel, when you expose animals to early life stress and look at the cellular activity in these brain cells that produce serotonin, we see a significant decrease in their activity. And so to finally look at the relationship between serotonin and competition, I dug into the literature and found that in monkeys and interestingly crayfish, when you give them an injection of serotonin, it increases their likelihood in winning. And so I validated this in my mouse model, and I saw the same results. And so I was finally able to design an experiment to tie each of these three components together. And so now what I'm working on is injecting a virus into the brain to artificially reduce the activity in these serotonergic neurons. And excitingly, what I found is when I did that, and it again had them compete, they won significantly less, just as I saw in my ELS model. And so now I'm excited to be working on doing essentially the reverse, where I'm hoping that increasing activity in their serotonergic neurons will help these stressed mice win once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Excellent job. Now we're going to leave 2 minutes for judging. to wrap up their scoring, please. We're at the 2-minute mark. Great. Move along. Our next presenter is Christy Anthony.
Sexual misconduct is a public health crisis. And for public health intervention to be effective, it has to reach the population, including their cultures. Bystander intervention training is a nearly universal strategy or pedagogy on college campuses. This approach centers harm as a communal issue, inviting everyone to intervene. Yet research is limited regarding if or how bystander intervention training is effective in environments like college campuses where not everyone is cisgender or white or US domestic. My dissertation research asked the following question: how do bystander intervention trainers use a framework called culturally relevant pedagogy to create an effective learning environment? This research drew on qualitative data from interviews with 6 near-peer or peer bystander intervention trainers with demographically diverse representation, including age, sex, US versus international, and racial identity. As the left-hand side of this slide shows, trainers primarily drew on 2 culturally relevant strategies: learners' concrete experiences and dialogue. When trainers combined these with curriculum-developed scenarios, culturally relevant pedagogy and bystander intervention pedagogy connected, driving the learners towards creating an engaged environment where they develop their own culturally relevant bystander strategies. Trainers also use dialogue as a multi-tool in this research. They used it to help learners engage and overcome a topical taboo, as pedagogical reflection for themselves, and for learners to continue their learning beyond the training environment. The qualitative data also pointed to strategies to improve the cultural relevance of bystander intervention. For example, trainers made little reference to cultural critique, and the data indicated that relocating that content within the pedagogy would be more effective. Similarly, the trainers made little reference to themselves as an integral part of pedagogy. And this indicated the need to emphasize peer training not just as a convenient approach, but also as a pedagogically motivated one. This research provided bystander intervention trainers with concrete steps to improve the effectiveness of their pedagogy for all learners. Given the still unsolved public health crisis of sexual misconduct, this critical examination of our own pedagogy is essential work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christy. Giving 2 minutes to our judges to score. We're at the 2-minute mark. How are we looking with scores? Excellent. And let me welcome our third presenter to the stage, Ashley Baston.
What does the term memory mean to you? If you ask me as a graduate student, I would say that memory is the thing that magically disappears right before all of my exams. But if you ask me as someone who studies the immune system, I would say it's a complicated way in which your immune cells work to protect you, which sometimes can go very, very wrong. For people living with HIV, the term memory takes on a different meaning. Up to 50% of people living with HIV experience HIV-associated dementia, a serious condition that can result in memory loss. Currently, treatment options are extremely limited, as the exact cause remains unknown. However, my research aims to find that cause, proposing that it's a different kind of memory, that of the immune system, that could be the key in understanding these dementias. Trained immunity is a newly discovered form of innate immune memory unique to anything else in your body. Think of this like a sports system. You have a coach, you have your team, and you have an opposing team. In trained immunity, that coach is called a training stimulus, and it's a protein that interacts with your immune cells, your team, to respond against potential threats, the opposing team. Usually, this system works very well to keep you healthy. However, under select conditions like HIV infection, trained immunity can go haywire, launching a massive inflammatory response that damages surrounding tissue, kind of like a coach overtraining an athlete to the point of injury. For the brain, this is especially harmful. The brain is such a delicate environment. Any additional stress could be harmful to your neurons, the cells most involved in memory. My research proposes that it's a specific HIV protein called NEF that is a bad training stimulus, a harmful coach that interacts with the immune cells in your brain to induce damaging inflammation, harming those neurons and potentially leading to HIV-associated dementia. To test this, we expose both mice and human brain cells to NEF, and we look at metrics like neuron health, cell stress, and inflammation. We use a specialized microscope called a fluorescence microscope to let us look at all the different cells by color. We tag each different type with a color, and it lets me see exactly how NEF is impacting a diverse range of brain cells. We also use a tool called an ELISA, which allows me to count exactly how much inflammatory protein is being produced by these cells after exposure to NEF. Our results are very clear. NEF is a harmful training stimulus, interacting with the immune cells in your brain to induce damage to neurons, potentially leading to HIV-associated dementia. In my work, the term memory is both the trigger and the target, but it's my hope that through this work, memory could even be part of the cure. This work will lead to treatment options not just for HIV-associated dementia, but similar disorders like Alzheimer's disease, leading to better outcomes around the world for millions of people through memory. Thank you.
Excellent timing, Ashley. All right, 2 minutes for judging, please. That was a quicker session of judging. We can move right along. Our next presenter is Nick Foreman.
Have you ever eaten too much food? Maybe at a party or a holiday gathering. We likely all have at one point or another. But what happens inside the body when you eat too much food? We know that eating too much food long term isn't good for us. And so is there a way to prevent the negative changes that happen after just one day? That's what my research focuses on. We fed participants 3 different diets for one day each. One day, participants ate a healthy, low-fat diet with the normal amount of food. One day, participants ate a high-fat diet with twice as much food as normal, a day full of pizza, ice cream, and macaroni and cheese. The third day, participants ate that same high-fat diet, but instead of sitting on the couch all day, participants came into our lab and biked for an hour and a half at a relatively easy intensity. The morning after each of these one-day diets, we tested 2 systems in the body. One is the blood sugar control system, and the other is the ability to use sugar as fuel. We picked these systems because they're some of the first systems in the body that go wrong, with several diseases impacting our society today. Obesity, diabetes, and even high blood pressure all see changes in these systems early on in their progression. What we found is that one day of eating too many fatty foods made the blood sugar control system less efficient. The body wasn't able to pull sugar out of the blood and into muscle cells like it's supposed to. Now, that sugar has to go somewhere. It hangs around in the blood, leading to diabetes. It damages blood vessels, leading to high blood pressure, and it goes to fat cells, leading to obesity. And as you would expect, if less sugar gets into cells, the body isn't able to use sugar as fuel like it's supposed to. Now, I'd love to tell you that exercise fixes everything, and all you have to do is exercise and you can eat as much pizza and ice cream as you want. But that's not the case. Exercise fixed the blood sugar control system, which is good. But exercise wasn't able to fix the body's ability to use sugar as fuel. Something is still going wrong inside of cells where they're not able to use sugar as fuel like they're supposed to, even though we expect that sugar to be inside of the cells. And that will be an active area of future research. So what I can tell you now is that both diet and exercise are likely important for long-term health. And if you know you're going to be eating a little bit of extra food, maybe some exercise isn't a bad idea. So next Thanksgiving, remember that maybe that turkey trot isn't such a bad idea after all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. 2 minutes for judging. like we've got our scores in. So next, please help me by welcoming Abigail Hunt.
Imagine you slip on the ice and cut your arm. A virus might enter your bloodstream and infect your cells. That's when your immune system kicks in. T cells are the fighters of your immune system, and they have special sensors called T cell receptors that can recognize markers on the surface of infected cells so they can target and kill them until eventually you feel better. Now imagine a child sitting in a hospital bed with a brain tumor. Cancer happens when normal cells get reprogrammed to divide uncontrollably. Because cancer comes from normal cells, your T cells can't recognize it as foreign and kill it in the same way it can infected cells when you're sick. That's why your immune system can cure you from a cold but can't fight off cancer. Researchers found a way to overcome this problem by engineering T cells to express a special receptor called a chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR. CAR T cells can recognize markers on the surface of tumor cells so they can target and kill them, much in the same way your T cells can kill cells when you're sick. CAR T cells are incredibly potent and can kill many tumor cells very quickly. The problem, however, is they eventually become exhausted before they're able to completely eliminate the tumor. My thesis project aims to improve CAR T cell therapy by combining both of these kinds of receptors onto the same T cell, a TCR CAR T cell. TCR CAR T cells possess both this CAR, which can recognize one marker on the surface of tumor cells, and a TCR, which can recognize a different marker on the surface of tumor cells. This combines the powerful engineered CAR with the naturally occurring T cell receptor. TCR CAR T cells this complementary approach enables T cells to better recognize cancer, to kill it more effectively and for longer. Importantly, signaling through one of these receptors can enhance signaling through the other receptor, leading to greater overall activation. This improved activation is what enables TCR CAR T cells to kill tumor cells more effectively and for longer. When we test these TCR CAR T cells in the lab, we find that they're able to kill tumor cells repeatedly over a longer period of time than CAR-only T cells. While CAR T cells lose their ability to kill tumor cells, TCR CAR T cells maintain cytotoxicity and persist for a longer period of time. While more work is necessary to optimize these TCR CAR T cells for use in the lab or in the clinic, the eventual goal is to be able to take T cells from a patient, engineer them to express both the TCR and the CAR, and deliver them back to the patient where they can control tumor burden, leading to a cure. With advances like TCR CAR T cell therapy, we envision a future where no child has to suffer from brain tumors. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Abigail. 2 minutes for our judges to score. Coming up on the 2-minute mark, we have our scores. Emily, is everybody scored then? All right, great. So moving on, our next presenter is Ashley Carraro.
Nearly half of all new teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. When I started teaching math 11 years ago, I promised that I would not join that statistic. And I didn't. But my 3 colleagues who started with me that same first year, you can see on the slide behind me, are no longer in education at all. They left not because they were bad at it or because they didn't care. They left because at some point teaching stopped feeling doable. So imagine a typical first-year teacher. They're grading papers well past the bell. They're planning engaging lessons for their students. They're standing in front of a classroom full of students with diverse needs. And they're wondering if everybody else finds this easier than they do. They're not thinking that they're bad at this. They're just thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And too often, they leave. For years, the dominant policy research on the teacher shortage has focused on whether increasing salaries might help keep teachers. Spoiler, not really. Other solutions focus on recruitment, creating faster, easier pathways to get teachers into teaching. But those new teachers with less traditional preparation are actually more likely to leave. And this is especially true in schools with predominantly underserved students. So we're kind of solving one problem, but we're also worsening inequalities. My research starts with a different question. What if the teacher shortage isn't just about getting teachers in the door, but what happens once they're there? Specifically, I'm asking whether better early support in those early years can help new teachers believe that they are capable of teaching, and whether that belief makes them more likely to stay. In the school district that I'm studying, a new policy introduced instructional coaches dedicated exclusively to novice teachers. So these are highly trained coaches whose only job is to work one-on-one with brand new teachers. And this is only at schools with the highest need. So this created an opportunity for my study. By surveying all novice teachers in the county, I'm going to compare the teachers who work with those instructional coaches to those who do not. And I'm testing whether the coached teachers report higher confidence and whether they're more likely to stay. I'm also controlling for variables like student demographics. My theory is that when teachers receive consistent, high-quality coaching, they build their self-efficacy, that belief that they are capable of teaching. This matters because teacher turnover is costly, not just financially, but for students, schools, and communities. And it's felt most deeply in the schools that are already facing the greatest challenges. So if instructional coaching can help new teachers feel capable and supported, it may offer school districts a practical way to strengthen and stabilize their teaching workforce. Rather than asking how quickly we can replace teachers who leave, this research asks a different question. How do we help new teachers stay long enough to grow and build a career in the classroom? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Great job. 2 minutes to judge. we've got our scores in. So I will welcome to the stage Min Soo Kang.
Why are we so different? Some of us really enjoyed the sound of the snow being shoveled outside during the snow season. Some of us couldn't stand it. I'm not talking about minor preferences. I'm talking about extreme emotional and physiological reactions to sound. I'm talking about ASMR and misophonia. ASMR refers to autonomic meridian sensory response and refers to the pleasurable, relaxing, tingly sensation in the back of the spine in response to certain sounds. Some people have the capacity to experience ASMR. They are called responders, and some people do not. They are called non-responders. Misophonia refers to the hatred of sound and refers to a significant aversion to certain sounds, such like a sound of a Coke bottle being cracked open. Some people have extreme reactions such as anger, feeling out of control. Sometimes they have to leave the room. Interestingly, the same triggers may elicit ASMR and misophonia depending on the individual. According to polyvagal theory, we know that our nervous system often dictates how we respond to external stimuli. We also know that past experiences such as trauma dysregulate our nervous system, making it hyper or hypovigilant. I posit, according to this framework, that adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, would have a significant impact on ASMR and misophonic reactions. I gathered quantitative data from 250 participants, and my regression analysis did actually show that higher ACEs scores predicted higher ASMR trigger intensity and misophonia symptom severity scores. However, ANOVA analysis did not show a statistically significant difference in ACEs scores depending on whether you were in the ASMR responder group or non-responder group. Taken together, these results show that although ACEs contribute to the intensity of ASMR and misophonia, it does not categorically define the presence or absence of ASMR or misophonia. This is consistent with what we know about ACEs, and that adversity contributes to dysregulation and vulnerability to distress. However, there are a lot of variables that moderate its effect, like social support or access to resources or coping styles. My research provides grounds for understanding the trauma pathway of the little-known phenomenon of ASMR and misophonia, and my research further contributes to our collective knowledge on how the body responds to trauma. Thank you.
Thank you, Min Soo. Okay, I'll leave our judges 2 minutes to score. Got our scores in? Please join me in welcoming our next presenter, Xinxia Li.
Hello, everyone. I want to start my presentation today with a quote. People actually don't understand how hard it is to have neurodivergency and maintain friendship. It is so hard. It is so hard. This is not a line from the textbook. This is an adolescent girl with ADHD talking about friendship. So here are 3 facts that help us understand why her words matter. First, friendship is considered as a key developmental task that can protect adolescents both from mental and physical distress. But research has shown that children with ADHD face higher rates of peer rejection, bullying, and social exclusion. Second, despite well-documented underdiagnosis, girls with ADHD are reported to face greater challenges in peer relationships and more severe dysfunctioning than boys. Third, even with the most intensive treatments, they rarely address peer relationships, which means we can rarely understand or address this problem without listening directly to girls' voices and lived experiences. So my research asked a simple but important research question. What do girls with ADHD say about friendships? To answer this, our research team conducted a qualitative content analysis on 82 TikTok posts created by girls who identify themselves as ADHD and talk specifically about friendships. Many girls described friendships as as emotionally exhausting, feeling invisible, talked over, or like they were bad friends. They connected the struggles with ADHD-related symptoms like time blindness, impulse interruption, and intense sensitivity to rejection. But this is not only a deficit story. Girls also shared advices to neurotypicals and talked specifically about strength and joy, especially in friendships with other neurodivergent peers. In those relationships, they felt understood without explanation, accepted without masking, and valued for who they are. As one girl mentioned, when you meet someone who matches your ADHD energy, it's beautiful. So what does this tell us? If we study ADHD only through symptom and outcomes, we missed what actually shapes the girls' lives: relationships. By centering girls' voices, this study moves beyond studying fixing individuals towards understanding social worlds. More broadly, it points to a research agenda that treats lived experiences as knowledge and designs methods that can truly listen. When girls with ADHD mentioned friendships are hard, they're not asking to be fixed, they're asking to be understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Xinxia. 2 minutes to score. scores in. Please help me by welcoming our next presenter, Qingyu Liu.
Okay, let me start with a game. So I'll invite all of you to raise one of your arms high up in the sky so everybody else can see it. Thank you. So here's the rule. If you're the second last to let your hands down, you'll win. You'll be the best investor of this room. But if you're the last one to let your hands down, you'll lose. And then you'll be the worst investor in this room. And this game is called Financial Bubble. Now, we'll learn about this story about people get super rich overnight and then they lose everything overnight. And this is exactly the story where economists trying to figure out. We're trying to know this financial bubble thing by first identifying whether they have a good fundamental price. And the fundamental price is also what we call a true price of financial assets. But that is actually very hard because the fundamental price itself is often unobservable, unmeasurable, or even just simply unknowable. So my research argues that we've been looking for the wrong place. Instead of studying the asset itself, what we should study is the behavior of investors. So in my work, I modeled the behavior of investors using this strategy called riding the tide, where investors will buy in some asset within a high price that is high enough that all people know it isn't worth that much. But then what they hope is that they can sell this asset to somebody else with an even higher price. And now with this structure being modeled, what I can do is that it can predict a complete structure that is clear enough for me to run a computer simulation so that I can replicate the financial bubble and to replicate all its detail. And by comparing this detail with what's really happening in the real world, we can identify which stage we are in, and we can identify how close we are close to the end of a financial bubble. Now, could somebody remind me who won the game? We don't know whether you are a good investor or a bad investor here, but there's one thing within this game we should know for sure is that if you're in this game, you are a greedy investor. But thanks to that greed, it helps us to replicate the bubble. And thanks to that greed, it helps us to predict investors' behavior. And thanks to that greed, that we can decode the crash. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Qingyu. Sorry, yes. 2 minutes, please. Looks like we've got our scores in. Moving right along, please help me welcome Jelani Odujole.
Picture this. You're a 16-year-old high schooler, hanging out with friends before class, laughing, telling jokes. Then all of a sudden, you're accosted by police. The police approach you under the suspicion that you have a weapon. That actually happened to Teen Taki Allen, pictured up in the top left, at Kenwood High School in Baltimore County, Maryland. AI facial recognition technology had positively identified the young man for having a weapon when actually it was a bag of Doritos chips. Similarly, in New York a few months ago, a father by the name of Travis Williams, a father of 4, was accosted by police and arrested for fraud. The New York Police Department had identified him as an individual using AI facial recognition technology, and he had to spend the night in jail. He never got an apology, and he went home very distraught and confused. Similarly, right now, we're in a government shutdown. We're in DC because the government cannot figure out how funding for ICE looks. ICE is a law enforcement agency that uses some of these AI facial recognition technologies. We have a problem. How I intend to approach solving that problem is to collect diverse facial data from multiple sources, apply labels such as hair color, gender, skin tone, and other characteristic information to then classify that data. I will split the data into a training set, a validation set, to be then formulated into a test set so the model can perform on unseen data. Additionally, a part of the issue is that there's only one single sample. I will augment these existing data sets using an additional model, which will then feed into my overall model, which will then predict to see how well it performs on unseen data. The key metric that I'm looking at is accuracy. How accurate is my model at predicting what labels are for unseen data? If you look in the bottom left, I do have some preliminary results. I'm at about 72% to 73% accuracy compared to state-of-the-art models. I'm doing good thus far. There's definitely more work to do. That is my approach to trying to help solve the AI facial recognition problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jelani. Leaving 2 minutes for our judges. All right. Looking like our judges are very efficient. We're got our scores in. So we will move right along. And if everyone could join me in welcoming Hasara Ratnasekara.
Okay, so what really happens if the government removes an entire set of mobile apps from your mobile phones? In June 2020, India did something that no larger economy had ever done before. They banned more than 200 China-based apps in India, including major e-commerce apps like AliExpress and Shein, and the social media app TikTok. At the time, TikTok alone had more than 200 million users in India. So using this ban, we examine the consumer welfare consequences of large-scale digital trade barriers. Because these kind of barriers have become increasingly common nowadays, but we don't know much about their economic consequences. So to collect the data, we conducted a nationally representative survey that tracks outcomes before and after the ban. And the outcomes included platform usage, prices paid, product availability, content consumption, and the income generated from mobile apps. So using these econometric methods that are designed to establish causality, we came up with 4 key findings. First one, users of these apps experience significantly larger price increases. That was driven by loss in product variety in the market and higher search and delivery costs. Second, TikTok users said that their digital consumption has declined because content quality has declined and also their audiences has goes down. Third, these income losses were greater for content creators and also for small businesses that relied heavily upon these banned apps. And lastly, substitute apps such as Amazon, which is not banned in India, but only partially offset these losses. So we organized these findings in a unified welfare framework, and we provide the first ever decomposition analysis of a large-scale digital trade barrier. And our analysis suggests that there are substantial welfare losses that extend far beyond conventional price effects. So lastly, we examine consumer preferences to policy alternatives in terms of app ownership, whether they like Indian ownership or Chinese ownership, and they reported Indian ownership, highlighting the national concerns. So our study suggests that large-scale digital barriers reshape the digital markets, and therefore, policymakers must evaluate them accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hazara. Giving 2 minutes for our judges. Okay, we are at the 2-minute mark. Do we have all our scores in? All right. Next up, please join me in welcoming Matthew Rohn to the stage.
When the place you live is no longer safe, where can you go? This is the question that many African Americans throughout the South were asking themselves at the turn of the 20th century as campaigns of lynching, mob violence, and Jim Crow segregation made life there intolerable. By 1907, more than 100,000 Black Southerners had answered that question by moving to the Philippines, America's newest colony across the Pacific, and to the Indian Territory, the center of the United States, largely in what is now the state of Oklahoma. These are two of the most different places you can imagine. So what made them both appealing destinations for African-American migrants fleeing the grip of Jim Crow? To answer this question, I followed not just the migrants who moved, but the ideas that moved them, from regular people to the heights of political power and back to regular people. It started with soldiers. In the late 1800s, all Black segregated units of the US Army were stationed in the Indian Territory largely to conduct policing and peacekeeping operations. In the early 1900s, a few years later, they were deployed in the Philippines to conduct counterinsurgency after the Spanish-American War. From both of those locations, Black soldiers wrote letters home, talking about these new societies they had seen, which did not have the same harsh color line increasingly ruling the lives of their friends and family back home. Black newspapers looking for a unique scoop that big national papers like the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune didn't have access to, often published these letters into newspapers, getting them national circulation, introducing them to civil rights, these ideas to civil rights leaders, to ministers, to regular people, and even to key politicians like President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, who upon learning about these potential schemes, appointed T. Thomas Fortune, then president of the largest civil rights organization in the United States, to lead a 6-month fact-finding expedition to the Philippines to see what new lives Black Americans could make for themselves there. So these places were not the Jim Crow South. But lots of places weren't the Jim Crow South. What was unique about these two places on the margin of the United States burgeoning empire at the turn of the 20th century? In fact, what was unique about these places was their marginality. In the mainland United States, in the South and even in the North, where the vast majority of people were American citizens, the socially relevant factor in how African Americans were treated by their neighbors and often by the government itself was their race. That was what was distinctive about them. In these territories, in the Indian Territory and the Philippines, where they were some of the very few American citizens living there, Filipinos and American Indians not yet being granted American citizenship under law, it was their citizenship that made them unique in treatment from neighbors and from the government. In these places, it was not just the fact that these places were marginal did not make them places of last resort. It often made them places of unique opportunity, where people were able to live freely, regardless of what the courts or what the laws said, and were able to own and have access to their own land at a time when people were primarily farmers. That meant being able to feed their children, being able to live well as they chose to. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Leaving 2 minutes to judge. For your last scores. Good? All right, moving on. Please join me in welcoming our next presenter, Linu Sugathan.
Imagine a society that ranks its people at birth, a hierarchy that is rooted in a Hindu creation myth in which people are believed to be born from different parts of the body of God, Brahma, and where access to basic necessities and opportunities and even safety and dignity depends on which part of that body you are said to come from. That system is caste. Human Rights Watch describes it as a hidden apartheid, and rightly so, because it quietly governs who is treated as superior or inferior, pure or impure, and ultimately who is seen as fully human. Caste is often misunderstood as this ancient tradition that is limited to India and Hinduism, but it's a very modern living system of inequality that transcends religious boundaries, which is to say it exists within Christianity and Islam in South Asia and its diaspora. And caste mutates and adapts through law, through capitalism and migration. My dissertation takes up caste as a human rights issue and asks, what can literature teach us about human rights when law and policy fall short? Human rights are usually considered matters of courts, constitutions, and international agreements, but caste-oppressed people don't experience injustice as legal abstractions. They experience it in their bodies, in their everyday relationships, in their interactions with institutions, and in their everyday struggles to be recognized as fully human. This is where literature matters. I study novels, life narratives, and graphic narratives by Indian and South Asian American writers. Through close reading, I show how these writers make visible the lived experience of caste oppression in India and the US, and how they create anti-caste thought and imagine anti-caste futures in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and feminist struggles. They also reveal that caste is not simply a local problem, it is actually transnational and global. Across these texts, I find that literature does not simply demand rights, it redefines dignity and personhood. Because before rights can be protected, the human needs to be reimagined. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes, Roger. Great, we've got all our scores in. Wow, did my mic start working all of a sudden? Okay, we've got two more presentations to get through. So our penultimate presenter, please help me welcoming Elton Van Noy.
I study pediatric brain tumors because families are still being told there's nothing else that we can do. Pediatric glioma is one of the most devastating forms of childhood cancer, with survival nearing 1%. Chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery may slow the disease, but rarely cure it. We desperately need something better. One of the most promising advances in cancer therapy is CAR T-cell therapy. T-cells are immune cells that naturally patrol the body to detect and eliminate threats. But unfortunately, cancer can hide from the immune system. CAR T-cell therapy modifies a patient's T-cells to identify and recognize cancer. To do so, patient T-cells are collected from patient blood, edited and grown in the lab to recognize cancer and given back to the patient. This approach has been revolutionary in blood cancers. Children with leukemia are now living in long-term remission. But in solid tumors, especially glioma, success remains limited. This is primarily due to CAR T-cell exhaustion. As CAR T-cells fight a solid tumor in the attempt to clear it, they kill over and over again and eventually get burned out, exhausted, and shut down. This shutdown is primarily regulated by epigenetics. Epigenetics is a system of chemical tags on DNA that can turn genes on or off without altering the DNA itself. One of these tags is a DNA methylation, and it acts like stop signs on genes. Tired CAR T cells gain more methylation, more stop signs, and those genes that are needed to keep the cell alive and kill cancer are turned off. So my research asks a simple but important question: can we prevent this exhaustion before we return the T cells back to the patient? In CAR T cell manufacturing, there's an opportune window of time when the cells are out of the body and in the lab that we may be able to alter cell fate before giving it back to the patient. So my research uses DNA methyltransferase inhibitors, drugs that can reduce DNA methylation during this prime manufacturing window of our CAR T cells. And the results have been really exciting. These CAR T cells manufactured with this drug last longer and fight harder. They clear tumors more efficiently and become less exhausted over time as compared to normal, non-treated CAR T cells. Most importantly, in a model that closely replicates pediatric glioma, we see a clear enhancement in survival. This approach is promising because we're not reinventing CAR T-cell therapy, we're improving what already exists. Additionally, many of the drugs used to modulate DNA methylation are already FDA approved, and means this approach could be rapidly integrated into the clinic and offer improvement to immunotherapy to children who need it most. In short, by making one small change during CAR T-cell manufacturing, we may be able to make a product that lasts longer, fights harder, and offers hope for children battling brain tumors. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Elton. There we go. Maybe 2 minutes for our judges to score. Looking like we're actually just over the 2-minute mark. We have all our scores in. All right, excellent. So we have one final presentation for you. I just want to say you guys have been amazing. I know this is a, 2-hour event and appreciate everybody's attention. Also, looks like we've just about packed the room, so I love to see that. Please join me in welcoming our last presenter, Donghao Wu.
First, let me ask you a question. Do you still remember the first few months of COVID lockdown period? Not like you had online classes or work from home and probably got lazy, no. But how you spent your money. Did you stop grabbing coffee downtown before going to school or going to work? Did Amazon deliveries feel like a daily routine? What felt like a personal adjustment was actually something bigger. In early 2020, cities experienced two massive shocks at once. First, lockdown shut down offices, restaurants, and stores. And second, work from home pulled millions of people away from city centers. City centers, or what we CBDs, had always been spending concentrated. But then, almost overnight, this gravity disappeared. So my research also asks the simple but important question that when people stop going to downtown, where did their spending go? Using detailed and anonymized credit card and debit card transaction data, I track how consumers' spending changed during the lockdown period. Guess where it was relocated? From CBDs to non-CBDs. When CBD spending collapsed, the spending in non-CBD area rose sharply at about 54% relative to the spending in CBD area. So we didn't stop consuming, we just consumed closer to home. But this shift wasn't the same for everyone. Using this level data, I found that it was about 5% stronger for higher income people relative to the lower income people. So the higher income people shifted the spending more. But why is that? Because higher income people are more likely to work from home due to their job types, and they're also more likely to live further away from CBDs, especially in metropolitan areas, because they can afford the houses there. But now, here's the surprising part. Even after lockdown ended, even after offices reopened, even as late as 2024, this pattern persisted. CBD spending never fully came back. What started as a COVID shock became a long-run reallocation of economic activities. This has big implications. First, for cities, it means that downtowns experience a structural challenge to their long-run viability, especially in tax revenues, public transit, and real estate. And for economists like me, it shows that where people work shapes where the economic activity happens, especially these higher income people. And for policymakers, they're facing this question that should we adapt to this more decentralized urban economy? If not, what should we do? So next time we order coffee near your houses instead of in downtown, remember that small decision is actually a part of a much larger transformation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for these wonderful presentations. I don't know if anyone can relate to mistakenly thinking that this was easy because they made it look so good, but it is quite the opposite. It's quite a challenge to distill your complicated research into a 3-minute presentation that is easy enough for all of us to understand. So big congrats to everybody who presented. Please give us another round of applause. Okay, and I take it all of our scores are entered in, and we actually don't need to dismiss our judges for deliberation because looks like everything's clean. Oh, okay, sorry, 2 minutes for that presentation. Whoops. I'm gonna start have we been judging this whole time that I've been speaking? Okay, all right. Then just give me a thumbs up when we have our last scores in. And while we do that, I want to invite our audience to vote for the People's Choice Award. So that is the next thing we're gonna pop a QR code on the screen, I think. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and take your pictures of that and make your way through the little survey, put your votes in. We're going to give about 5 minutes for you all to vote. Both in-person and virtual attendees may vote for People's Choice. And as a reminder, this award is the same value as our third place award, so $500. All right, has everybody had a chance to vote? Great. I think we were generous with 5 minutes. It's pretty quick to vote. But getting very excited to announce the winners here shortly. But before we get there, I would like to invite Dr. Suresh Subramaniam, our Vice Provost of Graduate and Postdoctoral Affairs, to the stage for a few brief remarks and to present the awards. So please help me in welcoming.
Thanks, Autumn. Wasn't that amazing? Did you all have fun? Let's give a round of applause for our. So what I was also struck by was the broad variety of topics that we are researching in here at GW. By the way, right after I finish speaking, there's going to be a pop quiz for the audience on CAR T cells. Hope you've been paying attention. So we learned about CAR T cells, we learned about greedy investing or investing. I guess all investing is greedy per Ching-Yu. We heard about how people moved during COVID and their spending habits changed, and migration of African Americans at the turn of the century. Lots of very interesting presentations. I mean, my brain is just filled with so much information from so many different fields that this is probably the day I've learned the most in this year. So it's been really great. So thank you all for joining us today. And this is the third year, as was mentioned earlier, that this competition is being run for the whole university. And it's so gratifying to see such a huge turnout. And our competition is just getting better and better each year. So we had 3 days of preliminary round last week, and there were 15 finalists that progressed to the final today. So congratulations on advancing to the final and doing a wonderful job. In my eyes, all of you are winners, but we're only going to select 3 winners. The judges are going to select just 3 winners after this. So let me talk a little bit about how the 3MT got started. It was developed by the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008, and then it just started growing. The main goal of the 3MT was to really improve research communication, how we communicate research in a short time frame, how we communicate to a general audience. Now, that actually is much harder than speaking to a specialist, right? At least that's been my experience. I can go to a conference in my area and give a 30-minute talk, no problem at all. But if I want to talk about my research in 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes to somebody who doesn't really work in that area, who doesn't know anything about that area, it's very hard. It's very challenging because I wouldn't know where to start, really. No, they don't even know why what I'm doing is important. So you're going to start from there first and then talk about what you're doing, right? So that is an extremely challenging thing. And again, you did a great job in conveying what there's so much depth in your research, I'm sure, because you're going to be writing 200-page dissertations pretty soon. But condensing all of that in 3 minutes is quite the challenge, and you rose up to it. So congratulations again. So the first place winner of today's competition is going to be nominated to participate in the regional competition, which is called the NAGS regional competition. NAGS stands for Northeastern Association of Graduate Schools. That's a group of about 75 universities, all of the universities in Canada, not all, those that participate in 3MT, and many universities in the northeastern part of the US. So that competition is going to be held in April, and if you progress beyond that, there's a national level competition. Okay. So before we move on to the awards, I'd like to take a moment to thank a lot of people that made today's event possible. First, I'd like to thank the wonderful staff of OGPA, or the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Affairs. And well, a couple of them are right here. Special thanks must go to Hillary Hughes, who I don't think is in the room, but she's probably busy outside. So she is the one basically that drove this and took the lead responsibility for this event. So special thanks to her, and also to Autumn Anthony, who's the assistant director of OGPA, as well as many other staff here, including our presidential fellow that's in OGPA. She was sitting right there. I don't see her there now. Also, yeah. Also, thanks to our judges for giving their valuable time for this, not just for today, but also the judges who judged the event last week in 3 rounds. And finally, thanks to the students who signed up for this year's competition. The first step in becoming good at something is to try, and to try, and to try again, right? And you took that first step, or maybe the third step. I don't know how many times you've spoken. It's true for anything, right? But especially true for public speaking. For certain things, and public speaking is certainly at the top. So the way you become good at it is by keep on trying, right? And you did that very well today. You did once last week, and you did again today. So that's at least 2 times for you. So keep going. Okay. And finally, thanks to the audience for staying with us for this afternoon. And I hope you really enjoyed the event like I did. And I don't know if the awards are ready. So, okay. So there's not going to be any filler music, but we'll still have that quiz. Okay, we're going to start with the third place award. The third place award goes to Nick Foreman.
picture protocol right now. We're gonna take pictures at the end. Okay, okay.
Okay, Nick,
Oh, pick your little.
stay there. Okay, all right. That's his
On the
spot.
mark,
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
And you'll be joined in a second by others.
The second place award goes to Elton Van Noy. Okay, drum roll. First place award goes to Ashley Baston. And we have a People's Choice Award. This was voted on by you without any pressure from any of us, or no judging involved there by the judges. This goes to, again, Ashley Baston. Congratulations to all of the winners.
Now, before we finish with pictures, could we invite the OGPA office to stand with our winners and take one more shot? Hillary?
And we'll return for photos after, okay? Yeah.
What's the next?
So we're here.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. We'll be taking some photos after this event. After the event, please join us as we continue the celebration at a reception in the Continental Ballroom. Thank you all once again and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, now we can be photos. You guys, I don't want Awesome. Winners, let's go ahead and stand up there.